name is Joseph Carlson, and this is episode 65 of The Grief of Politics. Avin is gone. Avin is on vacation. So it's just going to be me and the 4 people that are watching this. Maybe 5. Could get up to 6. Good double digits would be pretty crazy. But in this episode today, I wanted to maybe talk about some stuff on the edges that isn't really being covered a lot. And I'm just calling this episode What Trump Cares About. Because I think with everything that's going on in the Middle East, with everything that's going on with fuel prices, which is kind of the Middle East, grocery prices going up. There's a lot going on in the world. Trump just went to China. He's on his way back actually as of recording this, or maybe he returned already. But I just want to show some clips, and I kind of want to break down. I think with all the chaos that's going on in the government, I think these are the things that Trump really cares about. And I'm going to wrap it up at the end and show you, I'm going to bring the receipts, as the kids say. I'm going to show you that, like, really, I think he doesn't really care about the common man, as it were. And I'm going to play a clip of Trump actually speaking to prove that. And there's actually some pushback we're going to get into. But if you like what you see or hear, usually, my name is Joseph Carlson. Again, this is The Grief of Politics. This is episode 65. I usually have a co-host, but he is on vacation with his wife. They're having an amazing vacation. And we'll see them next month. So I'm kind of, I'm unchained right now. I'm doing what I want. No, Avin never held me back. He's a great friend and a great co-host. But I just want to play these clips so I can illustrate the point for what Trump really, really, really cares about. So let's start with the Triumphal Arch. It's a massive monument that's going to be built in Washington, D.C. We will read a little bit on more details, but I'm going to show you first the announcement of it that they did at the White House about, I think, 2 months ago. It's a little sketchy because all this stuff is like, when did this originally happen? There seems to be so much in the news, but I'm going to show you the clip of the press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, talking about the Triumphal Arch, and then we'll talk about it on the back end.
Thank you, everybody. I know we have 2 very busy cabinet secretaries with us here today. Before we do depart, just one final announcement. As you know, this year we celebrate America's 250th birthday. In honor of this historic occasion, President Trump and the Department of Interior will submit plans for the United States Triumphal Arch, which will be an architectural masterpiece to celebrate our history right here in Washington, D.C. This is a rendering of the Arch for you. Thank you, Peter. It's quite beautiful, as you can see, and this monumental arch will beam at 250 feet tall in honor of 250 years and stand on ground that is currently empty green space in Memorial Circle on Columbia Island, a man-made island in the Potomac River managed by the National Park Service. The United States Triumphal Arch will be outfitted with beautiful artwork and depictions celebrating the success of the American people over our 250-year history and the enduring triumph of the American spirit. Long after everyone in this room is gone, our children and grandchildren will remain inspired by this national monument. Beginning construction this year on the architectural arch is a fitting way to commemorate the 250th anniversary of American independence. Great nations build beautiful structures that cultivate national pride and love of country, and this triumphal arch should be a project that all Americans of all political persuasions can support because it's a monument for every American to celebrate 250 years of our nation's proud history. And again, the plans for this will be submitted tomorrow. We'll have many more announcements with respect to our 250th anniversary in the coming months as we look forward to the 4th of July. Thank you.
So let's talk about the arch, all right? You just saw the announcement. That was actually really good. I'll give this much. You got to give credit where credit's due. They're good photos. It's a good representation of what the arch is going to look like. I'm kind of blown away that it's so big, but that's what that's what it's going to be. So let's just talk about this. I'm going to go down. There's an article in Forbes that kind of breaks down these rebuilding or architectural projects that Trump's working on. So let's go down to the arch. So the 250-foot tall Independence Arch could cost as much as $100 million, according to Axios. The Trump administration has yet to present an official estimate for the monument. The National Endowment for the Humanities, a federal agency that provides funding for humanities programs, has set aside $15 million for the project. The arch would look similar to the Arch de Triomphe in Paris, is slated to sit between the Lincoln Memorial and Arlington National Cemetery. The U.S. Commission of Fine Arts, which is made up of Trump appointees, has given preliminary approval of the arch, but it faces a lengthy process before building can officially begin, including a lawsuit that could block its construction. Surveying of the proposed site began this week. So there you go. It's going to cost $100 million. Now, you saw the intro that it was going, Caroline Levitt's actually, announcement that it was going to be, how did she phrase it? I just watched it. She basically said that this is supposed to kind of celebrate the accomplishments of the American people, but Trump wants to build it. I would argue that the things in the Capitol, the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, Arlington National Cemetery, the Reflecting Pond, I'm trying to think of, the White House, even though I have not been to D.C., I would argue those in a way are a way to celebrate American, like the American worker, ingenuity, like everything that we have done to make the nation great. You can look at the things in D.C. and say, this is really amazing. And I think maybe we'll talk about later, there's some things that could be kind of remodeled, repaired, that would make it maybe more, make these things more modern. But to build another structure, I think it's because Trump, in his heart, really loves construction. He loves building this stuff. But I would say that this doesn't meet like yours and my needs. He's focusing on this, and he seems to get really excited about it. There's been this talk behind the scenes that as the Iran war drags on and that things don't go his way, we're starting to see an increase in fuel prices. We'll get into that later. That he's getting bored with like the day in, day out of having to deal with the war. But he gets more and more excited when he talks about the arch and things like that. But the next thing I want to go to, the next clip I want to play, is the ballroom. And I'm going to let the clip play for a little bit. This is from the Today Show. And it just kind of like shows these representations on the inside, what it's going to look like. And it looks amazing. And they say some things about the tent outside outside where they have these events, and it doesn't look very good, and Trump doesn't like wet grass. But we'll talk on the back end. So you watch the thing, we'll talk on the back end.
This morning, the country's most famous address, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, is set for a major renovation. The White House unveiling President Trump's latest project, a plan to replace the East Wing, traditionally used for the First Lady's offices, with a 90,000 square foot ballroom. It'll be a grand entertaining space the president's long wanted to build.
They've wanted a ballroom at the White House for more than 150 years, but there's never been a president that was good at ballrooms. I'm really good.
With construction set to begin this September, the president estimates the price tag at $200 million, a cost he says he'll cover along with private donors, describing it to NBC News as, quote, his gift to the country. For years, special events like state dinners have often been hosted under a giant tent on the South Lawn to accommodate the large number of guests. The president has complained wet grass is unbecoming of White House affairs.
When it rains, it's a disaster. People are slopping down to the tent. It's not a pretty sight. The women with their lovely evening gowns, all of their hair all done, and they're a mess.
Democratic critics quick to pounce.
Listen, I'm happy to eat my cheeseburger at my desk. I don't need a $200 million ballroom to eat it in.
But President Trump is not the first to transform the White House. The last big addition, that famous Truman balcony back in 1948.
The idea I think Trump has is this will be the Trump ballroom. He sees that as his major White House legacy.
And it's not the president's first remodel. He's already put up a pair of towering flagpoles, and workers are currently paving over the famous Rose Garden. Of course, he's partial to one precious metal in particular. This is the Oval Office before he arrived, and here it is now with lots of gold accents, much like his Mar-a-Lago estate. And with the ballroom, President Trump is returning to his real estate developer roots.
I think it'll be really beautiful.
So that was the ballroom. I'm going to go back to this Forbes article. I was going to do screen, but I'll just read it really quickly. These are like maybe 2 paragraphs about each thing. But let's see here if I can find it. The ballroom. So the ballroom and the East Wing renovations, by the way, I'm not going to include this element because it may seem like old news. Maybe I need to put a picture in post. Maybe I'll just put a picture or a video in post. But Trump demolished the East Wing of the White House. Now, you and I can have a disagreement. Is the East Wing the most cutting edge, amazing part of the White House? Probably not. I'm just going to say it was built a long time ago, and it probably needs to be remodeled. But without consulting anybody or talking to like a historical society, which I would imagine, I'm just going to, I've read a little bit about this, but like I would imagine if you're going to literally deface a building in DC that it's a historical monument like the White House, you'd have to talk to somebody or there'd have to be some kind of approval from Congress. It's gone. Trump did this to create a ballroom. And the ballroom right now leveled the East Wing. And this is from that Forbes article. The Trump administration leveled the entire East Wing of the White House to make way for a 90,000 square foot ballroom, underground bunker complex, and visiting screening facility. Trump initially said the ballroom cost $200 million, paid for by private donations, but raised the price tag to $400 million with an M. The budget appears to have grown again. Senate Republicans recently asked for $1 billion in security adjustments and upgrades for the new East Wing as part of a larger $72 billion immigration enforcement package. Listen, if you're listening to this, you and I are going to have disagreements how the immigration package goes into that with the ballroom. But this kind of stuff, if, Trump brings up the ballroom, people bring up the ballroom. He gets excited when he talks about the ballroom. It's going to be more secure. Now, I know a lot of you out there are going to say, well, there was an event at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Somebody ran through security and ran at the president. We need a ballroom. But the thing is, you got to ask yourself, and listen, as much as I disagree with President Trump, I don't want him to get shot or hurt. I just want him out of office. That's like way different than wanting somebody injured. I want to be very clear. I don't want him shot at. I don't want his family shot at. I don't want them shot. I don't want them injured. I don't want anything. I don't want a terrorist event to happen to him or his family. But what I think is interesting is he's turned it into himself. He's like, well, we could have these at the White House. We could have these events at the White House. And it just seems to be turning more into like he gets excited when he talks about the ballroom. He gets excited when he talks about the security and everything. Also, are we going to vote on this 200, this additional $1 billion as taxpayers are going to say, well, there was already an East Wing there and wasn't it kind of secure? Like, do we have to redo it? And plus it's gone, right? So we got to rebuild something. So it's crazy to me that is what's happening. So the next thing I want to go to now, this is not like real cost, but I just think this is odd. And I think there's been a little reporting on this, maybe not a lot, but Trump is putting banners of himself on national buildings. So I'm just going to play this clip. It's CNN. They just show some. Trump did this to create a ballroom. And the ballroom right now leveled the East Wing. And this is from that Forbes article. The Trump administration leveled the entire East Wing of the White House to make way for a 90,000 square foot ballroom, underground bunker complex, and visiting screening facility. Trump initially said the ballroom cost $200 million, paid for by private donations, but raised the price tag to $400 million with an M. The budget appears to have grown again. Senate Republicans recently asked for $1 billion in security adjustments and upgrades for the new East Wing as part of a larger $72 billion immigration enforcement package. Listen, if you're listening to this, you and I are going to have disagreements how the immigration package goes into that with the ballroom. But this kind of stuff, if Trump brings up the ballroom, people bring up the ballroom. He gets excited when he talks about the ballroom. It's going to be more secure. Now, I know a lot of you out there are going to say, well, there was an event at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Somebody ran through security and ran at the president. We need a ballroom. But the thing is, you got to ask yourself, and listen, as much as I disagree with President Trump, I don't want him to get shot or hurt. I just want him out of office. That's like way different than wanting somebody injured. I want to be very clear. I don't want him shot at. I don't want his family shot at. I don't want them shot. I don't want them injured. I don't want anything. I don't want like a terrorist event to happen to him or his family. But what I think is interesting is he's turned it into himself. He's like, well, we could have these at the White House. We could have these events at the White House. And it just seems to be turning more into like he gets excited when he talks about the ballroom. He gets excited when he talks about the security and everything. Also, are we going to vote on this 200, this additional $1 billion as taxpayers are going to say, well, there was already an East Wing there and wasn't it kind of secure? Like, do we have to redo it? And plus it's gone, right? So we got to rebuild something. So it's crazy to me that is what's happening. So the next thing I want to go to now, this is not like real cost, but I just think this is odd. And I think there's been a little reporting on this, maybe not a lot, but Trump is putting banners of himself on national buildings. So I'm just going to play this clip. It's CNN. They just show some of the banners, and I forgot it was at so many locations. So we'll watch CNN talking about it, and we'll come back on the other side.
It's almost impossible to miss the new banner bearing President Trump's face that just went up here at the Justice Department. If you've been in Washington in recent months, you've seen similar ones at the Department of Labor or the Department of Agriculture, for example. But this one seems to strike a different chord given it's the Department of Justice. Historically, administrations have tried to stress a level of independence between the West Wing and the White House and their Justice Department, arguing that politics doesn't influence who is being prosecuted. But it's safe to say that line has been erased since President Trump has taken office in his second term. We've seen him directly pressure the Attorney General to prosecute people who he perceives as his political enemies or people who have led prosecutions against him. The Justice Department says this banner is in honor of America's upcoming 250th birthday celebration. But if you look at this banner closely, it also echoes what President Trump himself has said, talking about the slogan, "Make America Safe Again."
So, this is crazy to me that he's able to just put a banner of himself everywhere. And we're going to talk about some other stuff later about him just putting himself in places, because I think many people talked about it's about legacy. It's about him wanting to leave a mark. And this is just going to become a theme. Now, I know all presidents want to leave a mark, but I just think it's so strange that instead of leaving like a financial, he's going to leave a financial mark, but like some kind of lasting legislation. Again, I'm a squishy liberal. If you're watching or listening to this, we could disagree on different policies, but there was bills passed that the president signed, like Obama signed Obamacare, which again, we could disagree with that, but like that was a major legislative accomplishment. We're still, have the American Care Act today, for good or bad. A lot of people say it's bad. It hasn't been reformed. I agree with that, but that's a legislative accomplishment. Biden had the infrastructure bill, which is a big deal. I mean, we need roads, we need whatever. Again, you and I could disagree that maybe it was not the best thing. Avin and I read it on the pod. There was a lot of good things for labor unions and things of getting into the union and waiving fees and really trying to literally build America up again. But like Trump is just putting a banner of himself on the Department of Justice, which seems very like 1984 to just be like, this is my Department of Justice, which that's not really how that should work. But anyway, we'll get to the next thing, which I think we're going to talk about the reflecting pool next. This is Future Joe editing this. I realized I maybe stopped recording when I ranted about the banners, but we're going to get into more stuff. So we're going to go back to Past Joe. So take it away, Past Joe. All right, so let's talk about the reflecting pool. It's right behind or right near the Washington Monument. I'll show you some video right now, and we'll talk about some of the problems with it. So we'll talk on the other side.
President Trump wants to fix the Lincoln Memorial's reflecting pool, but it doesn't seem to be going to plan. Earlier this week, we reported that the contract to repaint and resurface the reflecting pool, which President Trump said would cost about $1.8 million, was actually going to cost about 7 times that, $13.1 million. On Tuesday morning, President Trump wrote a long Truth Social post, which calls me out by name and defends the contract, saying that it is a deeply complicated work of smart and beautiful construction. The reflecting pool is a national icon. It's a part of so many people's conception of Washington and America. But the things that make it beautiful also make it a real nightmare to keep up. It's very, very long, and that means lots of joints between the concrete slabs. Those leak out 16 million gallons of water every year. The pool is also very shallow. That makes it a petri dish for the growth of algae, which make the pool look green. The Obama administration spent more than $35 million trying to fix these problems and basically failed. President Trump, though, has said he wants the pool to be blue, specifically what he calls American flag blue. So they're applying basically a waterproofing compound. It's also used in swimming pools or pipes. And as part of that compound, they're adding this blue color. But some Interior Department staffers have noticed issues with the waterproof coating that's being applied to the pool. They noticed bubbles, small holes, and also inconsistent color. So in some places we're more blue than others. Folks that I've talked to who know the reflecting pool well say that if you don't repair the plumbing underneath the pool, then you may end up with another big bloom of algae, which no matter what color you paint the bottom of the pool, is still going to make the pool look green. The other issue, which we reported on earlier this week, was questions about timing. The Trump administration justified giving this out as a no-bid contract because they said they had no time to consider other bids. President Trump said on a couple different occasions that he had personally found the contractor to do this waterproofing and painting in the pool.
I have a guy who's unbelievable at doing swimming pools.
That's not the way that the law says contracts should be assigned. Federal agencies, when they need a job done, are supposed to seek out, whenever they can, multiple bids from multiple bidders to make sure they're getting the best work for the lowest price. However, the Interior Department did not do that. Instead, they've just said, look, we want to go fast. We want to be done by this summer so we can have the pool in good shape for the 250th anniversary. The contract was awarded on April 3rd. It's supposed to be done by May 22nd. That doesn't seem to be happening. Instead, what we've been told is they are about 35% done with the waterproof coating on the bottom. And the documents we've seen showed that on Sunday, they were 0% done with another key part of this job, which is to replace the joints between the slabs. What President Trump is saying now is he'd never worked with this company before, and he doesn't even know them. We've reached out to Atlantic Industrial Coatings, the company that's leading this work to apply waterproofing on the pool, and they've declined comment. It's a little bit ironic that the method and the contractor they chose may actually be moving so slow that they will miss their own deadline.
So as you saw right there, the journalist who did the investigation, I guess more people have looked into the company that is trying to fix a reflecting pool. And I know it says pool in the name, but the company that's done this hasn't done anything this big before. And they also just would like clean swimming pools, which that's not what the reflecting pool is. And it just seems like ill-advised, but Trump really wants it to look good for the 250th anniversary. Also, he drove over it to do a press conference. So with an SUV, drove over the empty reflecting pool to be like, hey, we're fixing it, which I don't know if that's going to help. I'd imagine it's probably going to hurt the reconstruction effort and the repairs when you drive an SUV, because I don't know if they ever thought the reflecting pool was going to have a bunch of SUVs drive on it. I digress. So this is another thing that he really cares about. I think what I'm driving at is Trump really has this thing about appearance. You know, he really wants his face on stuff to look tough. He really wants everything to look big. He wants everything to be bigger. The arch is 250 feet. But when it comes down to like normal stuff, he doesn't seem to care as much. One last point in the thing that Trump really cares about, and this is kind of a niche thing, but it really bugs me. So we're going to talk about Trump being on the passport. And this is a quick clip, and you know there's some caveats, but we'll talk on the other side.
And the State Department announced it's releasing a limited edition U.S. passport this summer to mark the 250th anniversary of American independence. Now, the document will feature President Trump's image and signature. The passports will be available only on request.
So, Trump is going to put his face on the 250th anniversary. If you get a passport, it sounds like from the reporting that you have to request it, which is fine. But I just want to point out, just for everybody who maybe thinks that I'm a liberal snowflake, that the country is bigger than one person. And if I was the president, if I could snap my fingers and be president, I would say to myself, wait a minute. This country in its 250th anniversary is about the country. It's not about me. I'm not going to put my face on passports or anything like that. it's going to be about me. In fact, I'll put this in post, but he is also putting his face on Park Service things right next to, I believe, George Washington. From what I looked at the picture, unless that was like an artistic render. It might have changed, but he's putting his face on the passes. And this goes back into the banners that are outside the Department of Justice, the Department of Labor. All these things, it's about him. He wants a big poster of him. He wants an arch. It's called the Triumphal Arch. He wants to be the one to fix the reflecting pool. He wants it to be American flag blue. He wants his name, anyway, it's about him. And to bring this home, we're just going to let Trump speak for a minute. Bret Baier from Fox News was with him in China, asking him questions how he thought everything with China went, if they had gotten a deal. And towards the end of the interview, which is about 25, 30 minutes long, I've cut some clips, and I'm just going to let you decide what you think of Trump's actual words and how he describes what he's doing. And we'll come back on the other side.
13 soldiers in 2 wars.
China got 3 tankers out this week filled with Iranian oil.
Because we allowed that to happen.
You did?
We allowed that to happen.
Before this trip. Gas prices in America are still high, painfully high.
They're going to drop like a rock as soon as
it's over.
Yeah.
Painfully high, though, now, and could be creeping higher before it's done.
Excuse me, lower than Biden, and much lower than people thought they'd be.
This inflation number is going up. You're right. It's much lower than President Biden's was, but it's going up under you. The numbers are. You can imagine Democrats and political pundits jumped all over this statement that you made the other day. You were asked when you were leaving.
What extent are American financial situations motivating you to make a deal?
Not even a little bit. The only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about American financial situation. I don't think about anybody. I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all.
That's right. That's a perfect statement. I'd make it again.
But you can imagine how many people stopped the soundbite I don't think about America's financial situation. So what's your response to that framework?
It's very simple. When people hear me say it, everybody agrees. Short-term pain. It's going to be short-term pain. But the pain is much less than people thought. Because people thought that the oil would go up to $250. You know, it was $99 yesterday, $99 a barrel. I thought it might go up to $200. I was okay with that. Not that I wanted it, but you cannot let them have a nuclear weapon. They will use it on us. They'll start off with Israel, wipe it out. The Middle East, wipe it out. It'll go to Europe. You know, they have a missile that goes to Europe. You saw that, okay? They have a missile, goes to Europe. I have done Europe a very big favor. When you tell somebody you're going to have to pay a little more, not that much more, a little more for gasoline for a very short period of time, because we want to stop the threat of being blown to pieces by a lunatic, by a crazy person, and they are crazy, using nuclear weapons. Everybody says that's fine. And that question was a fake question, and they didn't put my full answer. I totally care.
So, this is kind of making the rounds on, kind of like resistance, Twitter and online and message boards. And it's been the talk of many a podcast that people that obviously don't align with Trump. So he's in his own words. He's not thinking of the American people when he's dealing with Iran. That was in the block that you just saw. And a lot of people could say, like, well, what he meant was this.
When you hear Trump voters, Alex says, I voted for you 3 times. He can't handle the costs. And he's not for this foreign conflict.
I hate it, Brett.
He's not for the foreign conflict. But Roy in Pennsylvania, he's a retired farmer. He can't handle the fuel going up. And he says
it's going to come down very fast.
And
look, I'm disappointed.
I'm just telling you what they say.
When you say to him, Roy, Alex, we got a problem. We just hit the highest stock market price ever. By the way, then, when I went in. Now, again,
it's higher.
With the war, it's higher than it was when I went in. Think of that.
I agree.
The 401ks at their all-time high. There are more people working right now in the United States of America than at any point ever in the history of our country.
Detroit Free Press, a state that you won. While champagne flowed on the trading floor and President Donald Trump celebrated record highs, pessimism spread like wildfire outside Wall Street's doors, straight into the kitchens of average American families. There is this sense that, something is changing. Whether they can hold on and believe that you're going to get them to
Brett, I have to do what's right. I said to my people, we just hit 50,000 on the Dow. That wasn't supposed to happen for 5 or 6 years. I did it in my first year. We just hit 7,000 on the S&P. That was even less of a chance than the Dow. It was just announced 401ks are at the all-time highest that they've ever been. All these things happened, and I said, I'm sorry to do this to you, but we have to stop this group of very crazy people. Now, those people are gone. They've been eliminated. The second group has been eliminated, and some of the third group. In a way, we've eliminated so many leaders that it's almost, I'm trying to figure out who the hell are we dealing with, all right?
Who are you dealing with?
But, well, we're dealing with people that I think are right, but they're afraid to make a deal. They don't know how to make a deal. They've never been put in this position before.
So you're going to hold out until they do?
Well, I'm going to do what's right.
To be honest, let's just be completely honest. Politics aside, before it was late February when the attacks in Iran started, when we in Israel attacked Iran, I didn't really give much credence to Iran's nuclear program. And I'm pretty plugged in to politics. I watch, I listen to political podcasts. I watch news. I do a political podcast every month with Avin. By the way, like and subscribe. We always talk about politics. I try to be in the know. I listen to right-wing people as well. Again, I'm a lefty snowflake, but I listen to like Nick Freitas and Ben Shapiro and even Glenn Beck. Like, by the way, unironically, when Glenn Beck gets in his chalkboard mood, it's the best. But I listen to those people and I hear what they say. And none of them, there was this kind of rumbling in the back, you got to watch for Iran. But our intelligence basically said that like Iran, they have nuclear materials, but it's not at the point it needs to be enriched for a nuclear weapon. That can be disputed. Obviously, they could spin stuff up. They could do what they want. They could do things. But our intelligence is saying like it's not really happening, so we don't really need to worry about it. Obviously, we're keeping our eye on it, but it's not an area of concern. But like to tell people right now when gas in some parts of the country went up $1 in a week, like in Indiana, and here in Washington State, they said the national average for gas right now is about $4.50. You saw it in the clip there. It's like $4.30, $4.50, somewhere it floats. In Washington State, it's about $6 a gallon right now. I had a friend in Vegas saying it's over $6. He was telling me that it's anecdotal, but he was at the pump. California, you're hearing like $7. And we're at the beginning of this, right? So like in February in the Strait of Hormuz, at the end, before the attack happened, a lot of ships left. And those things, there's ships on the ocean. They don't travel at like light speed, right? So it's going to take them a bit to get to us. Well, it's been a month. They're here. They've dropped off, but not a lot is coming out. And so you have to ask yourself, like telling a normal person, hey, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Most normal people are going to say, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not even worried about Iran. I just want to like buy groceries, spend time with my family, be a devoted, religious person. I want to go about my life. I want to go on vacation. Maybe I want to go to a movie on the weekends or whatever, or go out to eat. I'm not thinking about Iran right now. So like, what are you talking about? And then for him to bring up the stock market, it's like up. Now, granted, we've all been there when our 401k has been down and it feels terrible. But like, that is so much in the future that like to say to someone immediately, like, hey, when are you going to bring gas prices down? And he's like, man, the everybody's 401k is ripping. It's like, well, what are we doing? What's happening? Why? What is going on? It's crazy to me. Like, so I just think the things I brought up before, that's what Trump really cares about. He gets very excited when he talks about the ballroom. He's always, in some of these press conferences, if you watch, when they're talking about the war in Iran, sometimes at the end, he will just show a picture of the ballroom or the arch and say, look, we're really coming along with this. And it's like, what are you doing about gas prices? And I think what it is He loves building things. He's been in construction for years. This is what he really cares about. He cares about monuments to himself. And I think this just shows a level, again, liberal squish here, but it does show this like total disregard for like the moment and what is happening right now. And I just wanted to make you aware of this. If any of you are watching this and you're like, man, I'm really sick of talking about Iran, that was at the end. But just watch the stuff with the arch, and also just think of the money. Every project goes over budget. Well, I'm not going to say every. Many projects go over budget. And you have to think, I mean, what could we do for the ballroom? I mean, I'm looking at this, $1.4 billion. What could we do with that money? You know, we could have better roads. We could have school lunches for kids. You know, we could pay down the deficit. The defense budget just ballooned. I mean, they asked for $1.5 trillion in their defense spending. So, like, all that could go down. So I just, to you, dear listener, the few people that are watching this to the end and watched all the edits, what is happening? Why is the president spending so much time on the arch and the ballroom and the reflecting pool and putting his face on buildings, putting his face on passports by request, putting himself on the park pass? What is that about? Because I would say he wants to make it about himself. He doesn't want to make it about you or I as American people. Now listen, if anybody else had said, like, I don't care about the American people, their career is over with. But Trump's able to kind of like dodge and all that stuff. But I just want to bring up, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about me. He cares about the arch to Trump. That's where I want to leave you. So I know this may have been a little shorter episode. I don't know how the editing goes in. This may be the worst episode I've ever done because Avin's not here to be my wingman. But please, I ask you, well, look at what I'm reporting here with the arch. I'm really just, I'm showing you what I've seen from reporting. But, like, really ask yourself, like, why is he so concerned with these other things when he should be worrying about lowering the price of fuel and trying to get the Strait of Hormuz open and getting the price of groceries to come down? But instead, he's going to show you that picture of the arch again at some press conference. And so just ask yourself, is Trump in it for himself or is he in it for me? Have a good month, everybody. I will see you next month. Avin will be back to save my bacon. If you like what you see or hear, if you're listening to this on podcast, like, subscribe, share it with your friends and family, and get the word out. And, I will talk to everybody next month. Bye.